so cool, guys. Today we have Marcus Miller, who is the Internet Marketing and SEO Consultant at Bowlerhead. And Bowlerhead is a digital marketing agency based in Birmingham, UK. They serve clients around the world, and they help small businesses make a big impact with expert web design, SEO, and PPC. And today Marcus will tell us a lot more about what he does and what his company does for the world. So Marcus, how did you find yourself working for Bowlerhead?
It's my business. I set it up, so I guess I fell into this kind of digital marketing job or industry sort of 20 plus years ago, maybe 1999. I did a computer science degree, was kind of like thinking I was going into a kind of career as like I don't know, software developer or a programmer. Started work for a small e-commerce company called Mobile Fun. My job there was to help them build their websites and their order processing systems, and also they sold these old ringtones for the phones where you used to be able to download the ringtone. And yes, I was working as a developer pretty much, but I mean over and this is before Shopify or WordPress or any of these off-the-shelf systems, so everything was kind of hand-coded and built. But after a year or so, when we built these platforms, the question just became, well, how do we get more customers? How do we get more traffic? And this is the early days of Google, really. I mean, I think I'd worked there prior to Google Ads even launching. I remember the day that Google Ads launched. So I kind of fell down the SEO rabbit hole then and started to look at ways to generate more traffic. And I was always kind of, it was quite an interesting period of time, because up until SEO or negative or black hat SEO factors hadn't really, you could kind of do whatever you wanted at that point, and there was lots of crazy things you could do that would get great results, but there was still a few kind of people that were flying the kind of white hat banner and saying, if you try and manipulate search rankings, sooner or later you will come unstuck. I think I was still there when the first major kind of punitive SEO update, the Florida update, happened in 2003. A lot of people just disappeared overnight. They built businesses on organic traffic and employed lots of staff, and all of a sudden they just lost all of their traffic, lost all of their business, lost all of their leads, and so I think that kind of exposure to these early kind of more punitive kind of search engine algorithms kind of sort of made me think, okay, well, it's not ethical to sell SEO, but to be doing things that's against Google's terms and conditions. So it kind of coloured the way that I kind of approached kind of SEO and digital marketing from then onwards, really. Then I worked for various other companies in the UK doing some degree of development, some kind of technical SEO stuff, building sites, making sure they were well accessible for search engines. And after I think maybe about 10 years working, so around 2010, I think I just got an offer I couldn't refuse, really. Someone was going to pay me just to do some consulting. It was probably more than I was earning as a salary, and it was only going to take a couple of days a week. So I just kind of took the jump at that point. And then really for the first sort of 2 or 3 years, it was really just me, just doing SEO consulting. Then I employed my sister basically to help make sure I didn't, miss meetings or schedule 3 meetings at the same time and not go to any of them. And it's just kind of grown from there, really. Again, we focus on trying to help smaller businesses. We think every business deserves to have, kind of world-class SEO or digital marketing or even just advice. So we're very much focused on, on helping the smaller guys. I find that more satisfying, even though I've consulted for banks and major brands and some of the biggest kind of companies in the UK. I think now what I really find satisfying is that kind of underdog marketing, trying to help the small guys do well.
Okay, well, just a question, because you said that you decided to take your sister for your job. So you had to be good siblings before, right? Because it's really hard to work with your relatives. So how did you manage to enjoy the working process?
It was okay for years. Unfortunately, we did fall out in the end over work. So yeah, but and my brother still works for me now. So you know, they do have kind of family involved in the business still. Maybe one day, so he'll come back as well. But you know, it is tough to work with a sibling. You know, there's an additional level of kind of friction or potential for friction there. So it's you know.
And maybe it's also a little bit hard to trust because you remember so many different strange points from your childhood.
Oh yeah, and I was the biggest as well and the oldest, so I'd always used to, you know, kind of not beat them up, but you know, I'd kind of, you know, push them around a little bit, maybe. So you know, maybe there's some simmering resentments there from when we were younger.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, and it's also interesting that you decided to emphasize mostly on small businesses, but you also say that you have experience with working with large companies. So maybe you could share some insights on this maybe gap or difference between working with a small business and a big business in terms of communication, personal relationship.
Well, I think when you work with a bigger business, obviously there's more stakeholders, isn't there? And there's more people having a say. And, you know, again, if you go back in time, 10 years or so, organic search was still very much, you know, the Wild West. There was massive wins to be made for people who were willing to make the, you know, businesses that were willing to make the investment. So there was, you know, back then there was probably more of an education piece needed on our part to help. It was more consultative in that rather than doing all of the work, I'd be advising people on what the opportunities are, where the gaps are, where they can start to, you know, how they can build out a kind of search, a long-term search strategy. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we've done all sorts. Banks where they'll have hundreds of pages that are practically the same thing, and it's a bad user experience, and these pages are indexed, you know, to, yeah, it's. We worked once with a firm of solicitors where there was 125 partners, and every partner had to sign off on every decision. So although they paid us for several months, nothing ever happened really because they could never agree on what they needed to do.
Oh yeah, that's.
So with the smaller company, often, you know, the goals are narrower. They're, you know, what they want to achieve is clearer. They just need good advice and you know, something that will, you know, that delivers results and gives them a return on their marketing budget. So we're pretty honest, you know, in that respect. At least we try to be. If someone, you know, the majority of people will come to us and say, I want SEO and this is what I do and where I do it, but we'll probably take a look. And if we don't think that's feasible, we won't take them on for that. All advice, I mean, cows, it may be social, it may be paid search, you know, it's just, we'll always try and give that advice about what we think will give them the best return on their investment. So, you know, the classic example, I guess, is someone needs leads now. They come to us asking for SEO. They're absolutely nowhere. So we know that if it's viable to get you traffic from search for what you do, it could take 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. If you need leads now, let's do some paid search. Let's get that profitable and bring you some kind of leads through the door, you know, today, tomorrow, next week. And then once we've made that profitable, let's start to reinvest some of that money in organic search as well. So, you know, I do believe in a kind of a pretty holistic approach to search that encapsulates, you know, organic and local and paid and other tactics as well. But it's you've always got to be mindful of what people's objectives are. You know, do they need work quickly? And typically with small people, the answer is yes. You know, they need work today. Yeah, so you know, every job's a bit different. But we try to work with smaller companies. We try to work in traditional business categories a lot because, you know, estate agents, accountants, tradespeople, because we have experience there, we can predict pretty quickly what'll work, and of course there's like economies of scale as well. If we work with 10 dentists, the dentist 11, we already know what's on we already know what a good pay-per-click campaign looks like for a dentist. We already know what organic search work we need to do. So because we have an economy of scale within the industries that we serve, we can offer a high quality, proven service at a good price, which again is what, you know, what these small businesses need. Is they need results and they need to not pay a fortune for it. And a sad truth, I think, particularly about the SEO industry, and this is probably as true now as it was 20 years ago, is there's lots of folks out there offering services that are either breaking Google's terms and conditions, or don't work at all, or aren't really driven by any kind of deep strategy or understanding of how search engines work, or, you know, are primarily built around kind of low value link building tactics that, you know, so it's, yeah, so we try and wrap everything up. We try and bring this kind of broader marketing smarts to the table. We want to make sure that you're saying the right things, that you've got a USP, that, you know, we understand what your competitors look like. So we want to get you, you know, in the right place at the right time, saying the right thing to convert those people, you know, to customers.
Okay, that's really inspiring, because I don't know why, but I recollected the blog that you have on the bowler hat and the information that you put there. And when I read that information, I felt such a big trust, as if, I don't know, like as if the person who was writing this was just talking to me. And I really felt that if I need to fix my SEO, so I can simply go to bowler hat and I won't get advice about, I don't know, something not realistic.
Esoteric, you know, kind of search engine algorithm factors. You know, people talk, I mean, we get the emails as well, you know, from people trying to sell SEO in these kind of ridiculous ways or overcomplicating it. So we do try and make it understandable. And I think that most good search strategies, although there are technical elements to them, they are built on a foundation of common sense. And if you can't explain to someone what you're doing and why you're doing it, then there's a problem there somewhere. And I think that there's a lot of that out there. There's a lot of people that they know that they need to do better on a search engine. They employ a search engine optimization company. They don't really know what happens. You know, it's all kind of back office stuff. So we try not to work like that. We try to have a more, you know, it's very marketing led.
Okay. Well, Marcus, I believe that before we jump into this expertise and professional topic, I really want to just our listeners learn more about you as a person, as a personality, what you do in your free time, or how your lifestyle has changed because of the pandemic. So who you are in terms of like person.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I guess I like, you know, I'm family first. I have a wife and 3 children, a daughter who's 17 tomorrow, actually. My son, my eldest son's 15, and another son that's 9. So I'm kind of family guy, I guess, really. I'm into exercising, weightlifting, mountain biking, just generally keeping kind of fit and healthy. I play video games, watch films, you know, the very standard kind of things, cinema. I'm a big Dungeons and Dragons geek as well, which you know, so I play Dungeons and Dragons online with my friends most week, which has been a kind of you know, I kind of played Dungeons and Dragons when I was 13 or 14 or something, and I'd always wanted to be the dungeon master, to run the game. Okay. So when lockdown happened and when the pandemic dropped, I thought, well, right, instead of obsessively following the news about the pandemic, I'm just going to teach myself how to kind of run a Dungeons and Dragons game. So I play with 3 friends. One of them's quite local to me. One of them's in Manchester, which is another city, I don't know, a few hours from where we are. And then the other one's over in Switzerland. So it's kind of nice for us to kind of, they're like university friends. It's kind of nice for us to kind of just get together every week. Yeah, so you know, fairly typical. I've got a dog. We walk the dog. You know, nothing too radical or exciting. I mean, it's hard to remember, isn't it? Because none of us have done anything for a year. We've just been at home, you know. So it's not a lot has changed. I like board games as well, and you know, sort of just, yeah. My eldest daughter's a big trivia fan, so because she can't see her friends on a birthday tomorrow, we're gonna have some kind of like trivia quiz.
Oh wow!
And, we have buzzers. The question. See, unfortunately, I'm dreadful at trivia because I have deep specialised knowledge around search engine marketing, but terrible general knowledge. When my daughter's general knowledge is spectacular, so she just, it's yeah, it's a foregone conclusion that she wins, but it is her birthday, so you know that seems only fair.
Of course, it's fair. I remember I was celebrating my 16th birthday, and we were playing. What's this game when you have to throw the plate? Frisbee. Yeah, frisbee. So we were playing frisbee, the ultimate frisbee, and oh yeah. So that was a competition, a huge competition, and there was another team where my host father was, and he was the captain of that team. And after this game, like in a couple of months, he told me that we were supposed to lose, but because I was the one who was having the birthday, he decided to make me win, and that was fair. But when I heard this news, I was so upset because I was so sure that I won because
Rematch.
exactly. Yeah, well, that's really cool about the games. I actually never played. Maybe in my childhood I used to play games, but right now no. But the enthusiasm that you say with about the games might inspire me to play some too.
You know, there's a great board game if you want to dive in called Pandemic, which is obviously very topically relevant at the moment, and it's a fun game where it's you and whoever else you play with versus the board trying to beat the pandemic. So it's not combative as such. You know, you're all working together to try and. I like a board game. It's just an excuse to sit down around a table, have some drinks, have some food, you know, kind of. Maybe the game gets finished, maybe it doesn't, but it just gives you some direction.
Oh yeah. And that's interesting also to see how in the beginning we would be getting our habits on how to live this pandemic, and now this habits just became our routine. And
yeah, we're all institutionalized. I think that's it. You know, we're not going to know what to do when well, it's going to go one of two ways, I guess. Either everyone will just go absolutely crazy for a few weeks when they when all the restrictions end, or we'll all stick with our new hobbies and just do nothing.
Right. Okay, cool. So now we know a little bit about you as a person. Thank you so much for sharing. Bowler hat. Yep. And by the way, I just wanted to share what I think about when I hear bowler hat. Have you read The Little Prince?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I do know. Yeah.
And there's this second like title of this book where he draws the hat, but that was not a hat. That was a snake who ate the elephant, and that's why I always think about Little Prince when I hear bowler hat. Yeah. So Marcus, if you had to compare
the background of the name, where it comes from, or
the
idea behind it,
yes, please.
I think so. As I said, I kind of was a software developer really when I kind of finished university, and I was a big fan of Linux, the Linux operating system, which kind of underpins a lot of the internet. My favorite distribution for Linux at the time was Red Hat Linux, and I wanted to have my own company, and I liked the idea of the whole, you know, there's a lot of hats in software development and SEO, white hats, black hats, etc. So I thought, okay, so it's good to have a hat. The bowler hat is kind of a classic kind of British symbol of like the gentleman and the businessman as well. So, and I was super into Red Hat Linux, so it just kind of seemed like a good fit. Yeah, I mean, we have had people turn up at our office trying to buy bowler hats. So I now don't know how good a name it was in retrospect, but I think at least it's relatively memorable. So, yeah.
That's a very nice story of how we come up with some ideas to name our favorite things. And what has changed in your business, if you remember yourself when you were starting it until now? Major changes, or?
I mean, just the environment has changed, hasn't it? It's just a lot more complicated now than it was. I mean, if you go back 20 years, there was no social media, so there was no social media platforms. So, you know, whilst not, you know, search was, and even organic search initially was the only game in town, you know. So, and obviously when paid search came along, but now it's just a much more complicated environment. Even on a search engine, there's so many options, you know, local or text ads or shopping ads or, you know, business specific ads. And then, you know, you've got myriad social media platforms, all with many different ways to advertise. Many more established kind of platforms like Amazon, where there's kind of, you know, CPC models as well. So it's just, I think what's changed the most is the environment, or the digital environment, or digital marketing environment has become much more complicated. So again, one of the things that we try and do is this kind of tactical piece where someone will come to us and say, I want to do X, and we'll try and have a look and determine if we think that's actually the right thing for their goals. So we try and, instead of, you see, most people don't come to us with a specific objective, i.e. I want more leads, or I want to sell more of this product and not this product. They come to us saying, I want SEO, or I want Google Ads. So we always try and roll that back a little bit look at what the actual objective is, and then try and give them some input on what we think the best way to achieve that objective is, which is another way we try and distinguish ourselves from, you know, the myriad street level kind of SEO companies that will just, you turn up, you want SEO, you've got £500 a month, £1,000 a month, whatever it may be. They'll take that money, and when it doesn't work 6 months down the road, it's your job to tell them that this isn't working. Whereas we won't engage in something if we don't believe there's a good chance of success in a reasonable time frame. So we try and provide. So the major change is just that, yeah. The environment's just way more complicated. I mean, it's complicated for me, and I've been doing it for 22 years. So for your average small business owner, I think it's just. Yeah.
That's interesting because you know how they say that the best things should be simple, like everything. Why it's getting more complicated in terms of digital marketing?
Yeah, the variety and all of the different platforms, and I think the best approaches are quite simple. You know, and that's it. It's like there is the Pareto principle, isn't it? You know, 20% of the work will get you 80% of the results. Now, the problem is that most people don't know where to start. You know, I'll probably have the conversation every day or every other day. Oh, we've done Google ads before, it didn't work for us. And that's because you probably haven't done it properly. You know, that's just, you know, it's a rough answer, but it's probably true. I've lost track of what the question was. What's most complicated? Or
yeah, that is getting so complicated. But variety, of course, everything is changing.
Yeah, so we do try to simplify it for people. We try to say, okay, out of all of these 100 things you could do, here's the 2 or 3 that we think will really, you know, that'll really deliver for you. And you know, let's focus our efforts there. Let's keep it tight and get this working. And then we can kind of scale it up and look further ahead. So yeah, we try and provide that kind of, you know, almost a lifetime, I guess, of kind of experience of what's out there, and give people, start to point people in the right direction, so they just don't, you know, it's just so easy to just spend a fortune to not get any results, even if you've picked the right platform but not wired it up properly, because just all of the platforms are just getting more and more complicated all the time. I don't know. There's 2 sides to that, isn't there? Obviously, the AI components of the platforms are probably getting better, but at the same time, the complexity of the environment's getting harder and the competition's more robust. So it's still really important to get everything right. And yeah.
With this course, it's getting even more complicated to live. You know, it's hard to live itself sometimes because you don't know which direction to choose. And now in this sphere as well, it's difficult. Well, if we already started speaking about the customers, so I feel that you give lots of attention to your customers and you hear to what they say. Maybe you can share some the most challenging tasks or the most challenging situations that you had with your customers when they would tell you, we want this, and you would have to deliver the result.
I think some of the most challenging, you know, situations we've been in have been over the last 12 months where, you know, we're working with companies successfully where all of a sudden their entire business model isn't valid almost overnight because of the pandemic and the lockdown. So what's a good example? Okay, so we work with an events company. They do large corporate events, you know, people getting together to do these kind of iPad treasure hunts and things. All of a sudden, and that's a business probably where is hyper profitable in sort of 3 or 4 months of the year, in the summer basically. Then probably does okay in the kind of spring and autumn, but nothing in winter. Their entire season wiped out. You know, a business with a lot of staff and a model that just can't be used anymore. You know, it needs to be put on the shelf for what, 3 months, 6 months, you know, 12 months. You know, they're on the, again, they would be coming into their kind of peak time. So what we had to do there was to help them not only develop or come up with ideas for new products or things that were viable within you know, the kind of the COVID environment, but to reposition their entire brand and to then rework all of their marketing to say, hey, we do this, but we also do this, you know. So and again, you know, it's like it comes back to this like ethical piece that you know, these are real people with real families and real jobs, you know, and that you know, there's always the people behind the business, isn't there? You know, you've got to kind of be thinking, well, you know, we need to save these jobs, we need to save this business. So it's I don't know, mate, I'm too soft to be in business. I haven't got the kind of killer instinct probably that you need to, you know, I'm certainly no
To
walking
survive
away.
in the business.
Yeah, yeah. So we've had, I mean, we've had quite a lot of that this year. Either people who we've worked with for a long time, or people who've come to us and they need to change their model or, you know, adapt basically, but adapt super fast and across, you know, all of their marketing. So it's, yeah, I mean, there's been some mega challenging, yeah, it's been an interesting year. I mean, you know, so for instance, if like with this events company, they now have another offering, you know, so when they come out of this and their other products come back on board, they now have a virtual offering. That means they can now serve the world rather than just the UK where they were operating. So although there's some pain that we've had to overcome and fight through, actually they've now got or will have a better and stronger business on the other side of it, and they haven't had to lose those jobs. So you know, so that's quite satisfying, I guess, from a you know, professional opinion. And again, where I like to help the smaller guys rather than the bigger guys. I mean, a small company like that can literally just turn 180 degrees overnight, where if you have a large company with 125 partners, they can't make their mind up about what color they want to have their logo, let alone any kind of major, you know, huge shifts in their business model. So yeah, it's been a challenging year. It's been a challenging year for a lot of people, I think. I mean, it's been challenging for us having to be, we're a business that, although we're totally digital, so in theory we can all work from home, certainly we're a business, the creative elements of what we do work better when everybody's in the room. It's that, you know, that brainstorming meeting in the morning about a specific job that we walk out of there with some rough ideas, and then, I don't know, 4 hours later, someone's like, got it, you know, and then that conversation that sparks from that, and some of those elements are lost working from home. So, yeah, hopefully we'll be back in some capacity soon.
Yeah, you're missing the working from office?
Yeah, a little bit, because I think, like I say, I've got a family, and you know, I spend a lot of time with my individual kids and my wife, etc., and my own extended family. So the office provides a bit of that, so my social kind of, you know, we'll go to the pub after work, or, you know, whatever it may be. So that's kind of my socializing. So it's, yeah, I think I'm missing it to some extent. It's not easy working from home as well. There's too many distractions. I've got a PlayStation 5 downstairs, and you know, it's like I'm too close to the things that I'd rather be doing. Maybe that's too honest.
That's true. Just sorry for interrupting, but I thought that because of the house where I live, we have a separate house for sleeping, living, and a separate house where we eat.
Okay.
And that's why I think it helped me not to gain that much weight during this pandemic, because if I want to eat, I have to go to the kitchen, like crossing the yard. And I'm thinking, do I really want to go to that kitchen? And I just said, no, I don't, because I'm too lazy. That's why it's really good to have these two separate houses.
Yeah.
But in case you don't, you really miss office. And in terms of communicating with people and other stuff, like being social, that's affecting a lot.
You have to go away from your home so you can appreciate coming back to your home, you know, on a Friday night or whatever. And it's yeah. And obviously we've had some stressful times here. My daughter couldn't do her GCSEs because of the pandemic and stuff, and you know, and that was kind of handled kind of badly by the UK government. So it's just been it's been a stressful year. I mean, I have to be very grateful really, because our business is okay, and we've kind of, you know, we've carried on. We won't lose any jobs. We're in a better industry than many, and obviously where we're based in Birmingham, there's like a creative kind of area, and there's loads of pubs and bars and clubs, and you know, they've all been shut basically for a year to all intents and purposes. So for lots of these businesses, it's an incredibly difficult time, you know, with no real kind of clarity when they'll still be able to open. I mean, we're hoping, I think it's at the end of June now in the UK. So, but yeah, it's tough year for a lot of people, but you know, many people much tougher than we've had it, certainly.
Yeah, that's actually so exciting that you as a company, you not only managed to let's say survive, but you also managed to help others to rework their brand, to do so many stuff for them, to still be alive.
That's still be alive, yeah.
And exist.
That's the big win.
That's it. Yep, helping yourself and then helping others.
Yeah.
Marcus, so what's the recent project you're working on right now? Maybe there is any particular project in Bowler Hat.
One big one. We're trying to redo our own site. It's been what are my notes on that? I mean, you know, it's always we've got a load of different projects on. Again, we work with lots of, you know, traditional business categories. It's not terribly exciting, but they are people's kind of livelihoods, you know. I think we've just done a proposal for a number, like 3 big colleges, which we may be starting soon. That sounds like a pretty interesting job, helping them kind of recruit people for September. Obviously, that's relatively difficult anyway, because again, it's more onto all of these different social platforms where you know, kind of college age kids will be kind of hanging out, but also there's this whole messaging piece where will colleges be open in September, you know, so people are going to have more objections or hesitations than they would usually, so we've got to design the kind of you know, the flow of communication there, and how we get in front of people, and how we educate them, and how we make them feel safe that the colleges will be open in September, and you know, it won't be the absolute debacle that education has been for the last 12 months. So that's quite an interesting one in the pipeline. We're also looking at we've just done a proposal for like a major fashion brand as well, which we may be helping with some only the SEO piece of it with a brand agency partner of ours. So these aren't really the smaller jobs, but I've just quoted a company that does like charm bracelets, you know, as a kind of smaller one, but they sell internationally, but they've got some quite interesting brands as well, like comics and Hello Kitty and things like that as well. So you know, it's a real mixed bag. I mean, you know, I try and make sure that a lot of our work is these industries we've worked in previously. So, because I know that we can do these high value, low cost kind of products there, because we've got so much experience in those industries. But also anything big and interesting, you know, we can help.
If that's not a game, then it's not that interesting. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Just sometimes you just need a bit of variety, don't you, to you know, to kind of to keep it interesting. Or some of these companies, they have these kind of almost tactical challenges in that they just don't know what's the best platform for what they're doing, and then it comes back to what I said earlier, that they may have trialed a certain platform, but they didn't do it right, and then based on that trial they've wrote that platform off, then you know, that's also not necessarily, we've got to go back and analyze everything and figure out what's right. And often, particularly with something like the college, there's a big SEO piece there. You know, we need to make, because that naturally provides the granularity that we're looking for. So if somebody searches for, I don't know, an accountancy A level, they're going to see that right page, and that then means we know what that person's interested in. So we've got to control, you know, the kind of nurturing process after that, and you know, conversion rate optimization, and you know, analytics, and whatever it may be. But it's yeah, those kind of projects are the ones I'll probably spend more time on personally. I mean, we're working with at the moment, I spend a lot of time working with a company that does like industrial gas sensors for all different kinds of gases, like kerosene and, you know, things that kind of could explode, and personal gas sensors that people will clip onto them, and big ones you put in a factory. And that, you know, they probably deal with sensors for 150 different chemicals, so that the keyword research bit around that is actually, you know, I think to do well in this industry, or to enjoy it, you have to take interest in other people's businesses, and even these really kind of dense subjects sometimes, like chemical sensors, you know, when you really kind of dig in, it's often quite interesting, you know, and that's what kind of keeps the job kind of varied and you know, fresh, I think. They'll either draw you around the bend, or you'll kind of think, oh wow, chemicals are interesting.
Let's talk about chemicals. Yeah, that's really cool, because people get so they lack motivation to work because they do all the same from day to day. And in your case, with the base of knowledge you have, but then you have to implicate that in different spheres. So every time you find something new, I believe your kids, they always ask you, hey daddy, to help us at school, because now you know everything, like a little bit, but from different spheres. So at school, when you learn the same, like a lot, but in small quantities about everything, that's kind of the same. So they might ask advice from you.
Yeah. My 9-year-old, I'm teaching him how to program at the moment, and we're programming a little game, you know, using Scratch and some of these things, really kind of simple online tools. My eldest son, he's quite into computers and IT and everything as well, so he's learning Python and some of these other kind of, you know, sort of technical pieces. I've got them to help me when we set up like a new mesh internet system at home, and we're a big kind of video gaming family as well, so they're into anything that means they can have a slightly faster internet connection on the Xbox. You know, I'll get their attention on that. I'm actually, my 9-year-old is doing equivalent fractions at the moment downstairs. I think I've my wife does the English side of things and I do the math. That's
that's
when I get off this
impressive.
call, I'm maths teacher for half an hour, I think.
Cool. Well, Marcus, I was researching on your LinkedIn page and I found some articles from some years like 2016, 2018, and there was one article about SEO SWOT analysis. I believe that was 2018. Everything that you put in there, do you believe it's still relevant in, well, yeah, it's 2021 right now.
Yeah, and this again loops back to what I was talking about earlier, that digital marketing's come along and it's kind of this new thing, but marketing itself has been around for, you know, hundreds of years. So and there's lots of these time proven marketing kind of, you know, tools like SWOT analysis or USPs or whatever it may be, and we like to try and take these time proven, you know, tools and apply them to the modern digital landscape. So yeah, 100% SWOT analysis is useful. You know, so it's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. I mean, that's, you know, for any business to look at a search engine and think, well, what can we do? Where, you know, let's strike at the weaknesses of our enemies. Let's see where we're weak and try and kind of bolster things up a little bit. And that, you know, and if you think about it, if you've got a competitor and they have 50 great reviews and you have 3 bad reviews, well, there's a weakness and an opportunity. You know, you need to improve your reviews. So just doing this on like a simple, and again, I'm a big fan of not overcomplicating this, just putting this onto a sheet of A4, looking at your strengths, doing it for your, you know, competitors as well. You can kind of, without too long, you know, before too long, you can come up with a laundry list of jobs and things that need to be improved. So, and again, you know, if you have no reviews and your competitor has no reviews, well, then if you get reviews, you've got a competitive advantage. So, and that shifts all the time. But yeah, 100%. Any traditional marketing kind of tools like SWOT analysis, or even strategic frameworks like SOSTAC, I'm a big fan of.
I really like SWOT analysis too. I remember I heard about that at school. Until now, it's so useful, and you can actually use that in any sphere, even while cooking. So everything is about understanding what your weaknesses and strengths are. Yeah,
100%.
That's cool. Well, another question would be about the local SEO. Yeah, what would be the ranking factors for local search? And actually, that's something new for me. So maybe you could develop this idea more for local SEO.
Yeah. Okay. So local SEO typically is for local businesses. So if I, you know, again, if we go back in time a little bit, 10+ years ago, if you wanted a local, you know, a plumber. I live in somewhere called Sutton Coldfield, which is on the edge of Birmingham. So I'd search for plumber Sutton Coldfield. So I'm telling Google where I'm interested in, and Google's then showing me local results that take the physical address that you're showing interest in, and you know, they mold the results around that address. Now, as time's gone on, things have become more, you know, Google has more information to play with, basically. So now I can just go to my computer or my phone and search for plumber. I don't have to put in where I'm looking for. I don't have to tell them where I am, because in most cases, they already know. So those results that you receive are then primarily focused around the 2 key ranking factors would be your location and the location that you're kind of searching about, or where you generally are. I mean, again, there's tips for this in Google Ads. If you go look at the location targeting in Google Ads, it's you can target people who search about a location. people who are in a location, or both, or and even if you look at the bottom of your of a web browser. So I'm on a desktop computer now, but if I search for plumber, it will show me, there'll be one ad at the top, then there's 3 of these local results that are driven primarily by physical location, searcher's location, and the location that I'm searching about. So there's an implied location of Sutton Coldfield where I physically am. Now, at the bottom of the page, it tells me my postcode and where I am, and from my location history. So even though I'm on my computer, it's pulling my location history from my Google account on my Google phone. So it's using all of this information that it knows about me to kind of, to show me the results that it feels are most relevant for what I'm looking for, and locationally relevant. So local SEO is, the main factor is the physical location. Are you in that location that somebody's searching about, or do you serve that location? And the search engine will show the business. Obviously they use a lot of different factors. There's I guess there's 3 kind of big pots of sort of factors. There's obviously one, that location piece. Then there's the relevance piece. So is this page that I'm seeing, does it say I am a plumber in Sutton Coldfield and I provide boiler repair or radiator repair or whatever it may be? And then you've got the kind of authority and trust piece. So how does Google then stack the deck? So they'll have this primary ranking factor of like location, then they'll have this piece about relevance, so it has to match, and then they've got to still decide, because there may be a bunch of people very close to each other, who's more trusted out of those. And that's where things like link building, or authority building, or digital PR, or the technical, how well your site is put together. Is that site good if you're on a mobile device? Is that site good on a mobile device? Does it render well? Is it easy to get in touch with people? Do you have industry accreditations, that show your kind of expertise? Have you been mentioned in local press? The specific factors vary around each individual business and keyword and location, but primarily it's about kind of relevance and location.
When you were saying that all, I felt like you were coding, like, okay, so if we go this way, what's going to be the next step? So we go this way, is going to be the next steps. That's cool. It's all about like building this algorithm of actions.
Yeah, well, we have an audit process that we use, and so about 100. I think the local one's got about 150 things that we look at. So so we go down. It's almost just like this procedural kind of checklist. Pass, fail. What are our comments? And we use the output of that to then build our kind of plan. Basically, we work the way we tend to work. We do an audit, so we know where we are. That's a situation analysis. Well, what's the situation, and what's the client's objectives? Okay, you're in London, but you want to show in local search for Birmingham, and you don't have an address there. Well, that's not going to happen. So you may as well just forget about that straight away. So we have to do it almost, I suppose, prior to that, there's a feasibility analysis. So then we do this situation analysis based on, and we look at the output of the situation analysis based on their objectives and make sure everything's feasible. But then when we've done that, we'll come up with like a strategic goal over like 3 months. So then we'll measure our progress towards that goal, then we'll review everything again, and then we'll measure things and come up with these. So we have these kind of like roadmaps over a 3-month period. And we use a project management tool called Asana. And
oh yeah, Asana is cool.
Yeah, so within Asana we have these kind of project templates that we've built for setting up a pay-per-click account or whatever it may be, or doing local SEO, or doing local SEO for a specific industry. So we've got these projects we can pull in, and they're kind of boom, there you go. But then obviously we take the results of the audit as well, and we kind of model, figure out what this customer needs. And again, it comes back to the SWOT analysis. Maybe their website sucks, and that's the problem. Maybe they've just got loads and loads of traffic, but it doesn't convert, or it doesn't show well on mobile, or there's technical issues, the analytics aren't working, or the sites. I was just talking to a company last night, and main website has disappeared off Google, and it seems to be, just from the brief look I've had so far, that for some reason their site's thrown out a 403, forbidden error message. Like, so, it's almost like a part of the site that would be hidden from, like an authenticated part of the site. So, but it looks like an error with the hosting. We've got to do a little bit more digging to find out why. But you're saying, so Google's crawling your site, and you're saying, nope, you can't see these. So their entire site has dropped out of search. So people are searching for them now and can't find them. And then you've got competitors running, ads with their brand name as they're not in the ad, but they're bidding on it. So, so it's there's always always varied.
quite challenging. Every day there's something.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think I diagnosed that in 5 minutes, because it's just one of, it's just a usual suspect type problem. So I pretty much just did it while we were on the phone. Now we've got to do a little bit more digging and find out exactly why that problem's, or what that caused that symptom. But we certainly know what the symptom was and how to fix it. We just got to understand why. Is it the website that's generating the 403? Some security plugin playing up or something, or is it the hosting has got some kind of technical issue? There's only a handful of things that it could possibly be. So, it's hopefully we'll fix that today for them.
I like when professionals say, oh no, it wasn't challenging, that wasn't nothing unusual, that just was a random thing, we just did it. But it is challenging.
Challenging the first couple of times,
Yeah.
But with hard-earned painful experience, you can kind of measure these things up pretty well generally.
Yeah. Okay, well, cool. So now we covered the SWOT analysis, we covered local SEO, and now another article that you wrote that was so interesting for me was about this this new feature, well, not feature, but the idea of SMOT. I would pronounce that ZMOT. How would you?
ZMOT.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Can you share more about that? And it's a part of this new marketing model. What does it work? How does it work like?
Well, moments of truth is something that's been around for a while as a marketing concept. But the zero moment of truth was Google's kind of spin on that they published in 2015. So I kind of read that and I was like, okay, this is interesting. I think I wrote, it really is going back 4 or 5 years, that article, but I think it's I wrote an article, a kind of a treatment of that in relation to SEO. The concept of zero moment of truth, or these moments of truth, is all of these different touch points that someone has with your brand, and how they all have to work together. And now that could be over, it loops back, doesn't it, to what we were talking about earlier, that it could be, where do they first come across you? Is it a paid search ad? Is it a display advert? Is it a social media post? Is it a social media ad? All of these parts, or is it like a an informational blog post? All of these different parts, they all contribute to how someone perceives your business. It's more important. Like again, imagine a plumber, or let's say I know, a builder. Sorry, so someone you're considering having to come and look at your house, and you Google and you see their ad and he says, we'll do it fast, and we've got 100 5-star reviews on some kind of review site, one of the major review sites, and you think, okay, sounds great, I'm into it, I really like this customer, so I've gone through to their website, I've looked at some of their products, and this builder, sorry, I think, okay, I'm ready to use these guys. And you think, well, it's a big project, I'll just do a little bit more research. So you go and check them out on Facebook, and then there's angry customers on Facebook giving them a hard time, saying, why haven't you turned up today? So you've gone from this one perspective of that business to another perspective of that business. So I think the moment of truth concept is just about each one of these potential interactions is a moment of truth where someone's going to learn something more about how you kind of manage your business. So more complicated businesses need to ensure that wherever they're visible, wherever anybody could find them, that they're kind of controlling and monitoring their brand online. And the more complicated you make your digital marketing, the more difficult that job becomes. So again, back to your earlier point of simplicity, you know. But there's certain places you can't not be, isn't there? You know, you can't not be on Facebook really if you're you know, a company, because if you're not there, there's a big digital marketing company in the UK called Yelp. Not a big fan of Yelp personally. I think there's probably some great people that work there, but you know, we pick up a lot of people that get signed into these aggressive contracts, and the work's dreadful. It's all pretty much outsourced. You know, you don't have to research too hard to find a lot of people saying not very complimentary things about that business. So yeah, it's just, I guess it's just a case of, you know, really ensuring that you figure out where you have to be, identify what those important tactics are, and make sure, you know, you take care of all of that. So anyone who's kind of reading up on you or looking into your business, they see good things, happy people. My favorite, sorry, I got sniffles this morning.
That's good, no worries.
Yeah, I think one of the best examples of that is always restaurants. You may have a restaurant that serves 1,000 people a week, you know, 1,000 tables a week, 500 tables a week, but if they're never asking for reviews, the only people that will leave a review will be that one person that was unhappy, there was a fly in his soup or something, you know. So you end up with 10 bad reviews or something, and that stops the majority of people coming to the restaurant. But that's not reflective of the experience of the majority of people that walk through the door. You know, there's an imbalance there. So you have to be thinking, okay, if people are looking at, you know, TripAdvisor or whatever it may be to determine if they're going to go to this restaurant, well, you have to have a presence there. So businesses have to react to the environment and make sure that they're doing the things, you know, the activities that offer the most return or that could have the potential negative equity.
But that's so hard. No, this is such a cool topic because it's really hard to be sure that your visitors leave comments, or when they leave bad comments, what do you do with that? I remember once I was in a restaurant in Spain and I was not satisfied with one of their services. So I posted the review at the same time on Google. And I believe one of the waiters, he understood who that was, because there were not a lot of people in this restaurant. And
so you did it while you were in the restaurant?
Yeah, okay. That was not that smart maybe of me, but I was like so sad about what was happening. So he came up to me and he wanted to speak, and that was a very nice act from the businesses, like reacting to the visitors' comments. Yeah. But still the conversation was so bad simply because the business in this case was trying to defend his position, like its business's position. And it's hard to find this balancing moment when you as a business, you want to defend yourself, but at the same moment you do have to accept the visitor's opinion, even if it doesn't fall into your, I don't know, let's say frames.
Come back to another classic marketing concept, that the customer is always right, even when they're wrong.
And it made me even more angry because, well, yeah, you know how it happens when you try to persuade someone and they don't listen to you. That was hard. But now every time when I can't leave tips, I always write a review, because that's the same tip but in a digital world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, now that, you know, people are starting to appreciate this and they want to leave positive reviews for people, and, you know, and it's important for the business to incentivize that as safely as possible, you know, or as naturally as possible. Obviously, you got platforms like Yelp that are quite, again, punitive on how reviews are, you know, incentivized and everything, and you can get into murky waters there as well. But you know, generally you want to make sure that you know, if 99% of your customers are happy and only 1% of them is upset, you at least want that to be balanced out in the context, or that, you know, of your reviews. And you'll see as well, when you look at reviews on something like Google, when they automatically pop up on the right hand side, Google they don't just show them in kind of chronological order, they will weigh them based on the overall sentiment. So you'll see the most useful ones at the top, or the ones that reflect the overall sentiment. So if you had 100 bad reviews and you just tried to push them off the page with 5 good reviews, Google's going to surface those ones that are most representative of the bigger picture. You know, it's so you've got to, and this isn't often not talked about necessarily in marketing, but, you know, you've got to be a good business. You've got to provide a world-class service. You've got to do everything right, and only once you've got those pieces down can you really apply, you know, world-class digital marketing. You can't, you know, we can't. There's nothing. I mean, we must get people again get in touch with us almost nearly every day about wanting to remove bad reviews, or you know, there's just, unless there's something, you know, that's been said in that review that means that it breaks Google's policies. You know, it's very, very hard to get Google to remove reviews. So, you know, you just got to, again, it's just something that people have to be mindful of. And it's more important for some businesses than others.
Yeah, that's like trying to wipe your reputation, or like,
yeah, we've done a lot
hard.
of reputation work for people in the past, you know, where, you know, bad things have happened, and you know, and we want to, or they haven't, or there's some negative stuff, or you know, it can be rough for people, you know, businesses, particularly if, you know, something bad has happened and then it gets picked up by the press, and a search for their business name just brings up, you know, lots of articles about, you know, this one bad thing that's happened. And again, this is a balancing out piece, isn't it? You know, if your business is generally pretty good and has lots of good sentiment, well then if you're not doing some good PR, when something bad comes along, all of a sudden that picture is so unbalanced that you know, you've got to be kind of mindful of that. So you've got to go on a preemptive attack with these things in some situations.
Yeah, right. And I believe it's also important to have this good website that would attract visitors, that would make this website so easy to navigate through. And I read a little bit your website planning guide. That was really nice to read. Could you maybe like summarize in some points, what would be the most important points for the website to be easy to navigate and customers would come back? Just even to
start
see
with the customer, haven't you? And you've always got to start with what does the customer need? What information do they need to make a decision? You know, obviously, you've got to be mobile. The majority of your customers or visitors will be on a phone, and it even say like a corporate events company, where the majority of their customers are on a desktop computer looking at the site, but they still have to be mobile friendly. So you know, you have to get all the technical kind of pieces of that right, so the phone works across all these different devices. Then it's more the kind of common sense kind of structure and layout of the pages. You know, what does this customer need to make a decision that you're the right person to work with? Is it case studies? Is it testimonials? Is it your servicing your reviews? Is it nice big call to action so they know what to do next? You have to outline a plan. You know, there's no, I'm not a huge fan of generic answers, because you really have to look at the individual business and figure out what's right. But you know, as a general rule of thumb, you need a good simple navigation. You need, you know, it needs to, the site needs to work across, you know, myriad mobile devices, or you know, tablets or desktops, and you just need to make sure you're providing the customer with all the, you know, I always like to think of it in that, like if I'm looking for a plumber, I keep going back to plumber.
Let's find this plumber.
Yeah. Then it's a job, isn't it? I don't really want to be spending my time looking for a plumber. I'd rather be on my bike or on my PlayStation, or yeah, exactly. Rather be doing something else. It's an undesirable job. So when I get to that page, I want everything that I need to know that this is the right guy presented to me in the most succinct way possible. So I can say, oh wow, good reviews. Oh good, case study that's really, really relevant, you know, or everything that I need to make a decision. I'm going to get in touch with these people. You know, some clarity about costs can be important in some things, you know, contact details. Maybe if you're an e-commerce shop, it's like return details and payment details. You know, it's always in a you know, a useful example, maybe.
It is.
We renovated a Victorian house. So this house is probably about 120 years old, and we bought this house about 4 or 5 years ago, and we renovated it, and the hallways have these kind of curved roofs, so it curves round, and it's really cool, this kind of hallway, and it's got this kind of great staircase in the middle of it. Well, we brought in loads of plasterers. I mean, the house was a wreck. You know, we did refit all the electrics and everything. So by the time we'd had all these basics works done, you know, it was a wreck. And I'm very good on the computer, but this terrifies me, this kind of work. So so I started to look for plasterers to come in. I had 2 or 3 quotes from plasterers that came into the house, and they said, oh yeah, we'll just board that off, and then we'll just skim it. And I was like, well, I don't want you to board it. I want to keep these cool curves of the ceiling. Or my wife said this, really, not me, but I'm paraphrasing. I was at work to pay for it, but so we were like, okay, well, we've had 3 plasterers come, and all of them have said the same thing. They all want to approach this project in this certain way. So I started to Google plasterer for Victorian house, you know, plastering Victorian house, and I found a business that put a case study on there, and it's shown how they'd done this Victorian house with all of these like arch, kind of curved arch, and I was like, that's my guy. You know, that is my guy. So and from a marketing perspective, look at that from the other side, from his other side. So instead of now being one of 3 or one of 5 people that are all quoting to do the same job, and somebody says £5,000, someone says £4,000, someone says £3,000. I'm like, it's the same thing. I might as well just go with the cheapest person. It becomes an undifferentiated service. With this guy, I was like, he was like, well, I can't do it for 2 months. I was like, I don't care. And you know, the price became much less important because the quality of his work and his relevant experience was the defining factor. So just through him publishing a case study, we wanted to work with that person or with that firm. I mean, and they were great, and they were still actually very reasonable as well. But you know, that's you know, I think when you come to this kind of, you know, this whatever you want to have on your website or however you want to configure your website, it's always about what does the customer need. What does the customer need to bring me my ideal customers? You know, it's I mean, like every business, we've worked with some bad customers over the years, and I worked with one company that was, the guy was very, very aggressive, very, very aggressive. And once I told him that his citations were a mess, and he tried to attack me across a table.
Whoa.
And his citations were a mess, you know, they were a mess. I wasn't insulting his business or anything that he did, but he took it in a way, you know, that was a bad customer, you know. So as you get older, I guess, as well, and more experienced, you know, as a business, we try and only work with people who we know we can help, who we feel will get on with and won't be kind of really stressful, you know. And then it's a kind of, I guess it's a semi-privileged position to be in, but I don't want to work with people who we just don't have a good working relationship with. And so I hope in the way that we do talk about things on our site, it communicates the kind of people we are and generally attracts the right kind of people. You know, some people want you know, so I guess the point I'm trying to make is that you want, in your marketing communications, you want to be trying to attract your ideal customers, not just any customers, not the awful jobs that you can just about scrape a living off, but the interesting jobs, the good jobs, your ideal jobs. You know, so that's something again that's you know, it's a traditional marketing concept. You know, is this idea of the ideal customer. So rather than just, you know, we want to rank for these keywords, we want to show ads for these terms, you know, you got to be a bit smarter than that, and that's where we try and be a bit different than the average street level SEO and pay-per-click company.
That's good. Well, I think that now you have this experience, maybe, well, let me put that differently. So you said that you have this aggressive customer who tried to attack you across the table. So now with this pandemic and working only online with the customers might be even better, because no one will be able to attack you over the table.
Yeah, it's only happened once in 20 years. It was a very strange situation. We kind of walked from that meeting and just severed ties, and we're like, this is not working out. Yeah, I mean, I think generally, I think we've more and more moved towards online meetings, even before the pandemic. But I think that now this has really accelerated things, you know, and we'll try and predominantly work online, I think, going forwards. You know, there's just not that much. Sometimes there's a reason to get together, and with some bigger jobs, or like I said earlier, the more creative parts of things, sometimes there is. But for our general customers, there's just no point. It's just easier to just, you know, to just jump on a call and have a conversation like we've had a conversation now. You know, there's no need to you you know, waste more of the day than necessary. And you know, and if a customer visits us from, you know, Liverpool, or a 2-hour drive or a 3-hour drive for what may be a 15-minute, the bones of the meeting may actually only be 15 minutes. Well, then we're going to stick around for a bit longer, and we're going to talk, and we're going to go for lunch. You know, it's just, I'm sure we've all got better things to do at that time, so let's just do it over a Zoom call.
Oh yeah, I don't know how we're gonna get back to this normal life back in 2019, when everything would be more like face to face, but now it's so easy, everything to do online.
Yeah,
who knows? Who knows?
It suits me, to be honest. Where you know, I don't know. There's some businesses or business people that like to, you know, wine and dine their clients to some extent, and I'm not really that. We're not really wired up that way. We just want to do good work for the right money and get you results, and you know.
Well, but in case I need your services, maybe I will still think about going to the UK, because it just would be a very nice trip to come to the UK.
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe some of the last questions would be about SEO tendencies in the world, right? Because since you work with different businesses, right? So it's not only in the UK, so it's around the world. Maybe you can share some insights. What are the tendencies in the SEO analytics in different countries? Maybe the biggest.
You mean differences from doing the work in different countries, or?
Yeah, like maybe addressing the SEO and analytics questions in different countries, or basically it's the same no matter where you go.
It probably comes back to like that kind of almost like the SWOT analysis piece, because, like for instance, this chemical company I was talking about, they're operating in UK, US, India, Canada, Australia. You know, they're operating around the world in all these different locations, several others as well. Now, the big differentiating factor, aside from language, is the level of competition within any given location. So it may be really, really easy to rank in location A, but incredibly difficult to rank in, say, in America or location B. You know, so I don't know if there's really much in the way of technical differences. It's more kind of going to be from the perspective of the level of competition in any given location. And again, you know, from an analytics perspective, this is all done on a single site. So it would always for us come back to what does the customer need to know, and how we wired up the analytics, and whether that would change per location. But generally, I don't think there's huge differences from you know, country to country, really, other than the competitive landscape.
Okay, well, maybe one day you work with Ukraine, maybe that will be, you will find some differences.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, I mean, it's yeah. I think Google, isn't it? You know, at the end of the day, the technology is largely leveled out now. It's, you know, there's you know, of the obvious platforms like Shopify for shops, or WordPress for, you know, kind of, you know, more content orientated sites. So we just see more, but I suppose we see more that's the same than we do that's different. It's probably the best way to put that.
Okay, well, and what could you say about the marketing trends? Which ones would remain in the following years? What do you think?
I think that everything is going more paid. You know, organic search is getting harder and harder to work as a loan tactic, whereas it did, and it could work very, very well as a loan tactic. And of course, it does for us. I mean, we only do organic search. We don't do any advertising or anything, and never have. And all of our work comes from either referral or blog posts. You know, so it works well for us. But what we do is very can be quite complicated. And you know, if someone reads an article about something, and they get a flavour for who we are, and then maybe we offer them a free audit. So you know, it's all kind of, and then they get to see how we work, and we understand their situation and can explain everything to them. You know, and what they should be doing. Yeah, so you know, I think the major trends are just a shift towards more and more the need for paid. You know, so you know. I don't want to say that as an absolute, you know, dogmatic 100% of the time rule, because again, like the local piece always plays into it. I mean, you know, again, to just go back to our plumber, you know, he may need to run, if he wants to be competitive and serve a given area, well, then he may need to run Google ads. He may need to want to do some local search as well. and he may want to have an organic listing, so he has 3 listings on that page, so we maximize his exposure. It may be that, you know, certain things that he does are like emergency plumbing or boiler repairs are so competitive that maybe 70% or so of the clicks are going to the paid ad. So if he wants to get into that, you know, then he really needs to, you know, kind of, you know, you've got to look at all of the options. So the trend for me, I guess, is that it is this move towards nearly everything is paid. You know, there are a few platforms with, like LinkedIn still has quite good organic reach, but you know, the majority of them, you really have to look at the paid options. If you're, you know, if you're a small business with 1 or 2 vans and you only need a couple of inquiries a week to keep you ticking over, then organic's probably okay. But if you're more aggressive and you want to grow the business and get a larger slice of the action, then you've got to kind of be everywhere. So yeah, so I mean, it is getting more complicated. I think things are getting more segmented and people are going to different, you know, I don't know if I don't think any of my kids are on Facebook, for instance, you know, so, you know, I think it's probably seen as this desperately uncool platform that mum and dad are on, you know, as much as anything else. So maybe,
well, I'm still there, but I'm not using that much, but I'm still there.
Yeah, I mean, ironically, I don't use any of them really. I'm not a big social media person. There's just too many distractions in life anyway. You know, so yeah, the trends are probably this continued segmentation and moving away to, you know, people who have their own more specific. But you see, I'm not even sure if that's any different to how it's always been. And, you know, I remember 20 or so years ago, I was on small little specific SEO forums, or, you know, so it's just the texture changes a bit, but everything's always been largely segmented. I mean, I don't think search is going anywhere anytime soon. I don't think the big social platforms are probably going anywhere soon. But you've really got to come back to the specific business, who their customers are, and make sure that, you know, you're figuring out what's right for them at that time, and then also keeping on top of things as things change and evolve over time. Yeah, like you know, our plumber. You know, he may be able to rank in one physical location or within 5 miles of his house, but then maybe 10 miles away, there may be a really affluent area where he knows there's big jobs for heating replacements. So he might need to run Google ads over there and rely on his Google organic, you know, a little bit more locally. It's, again, if you can understand our customers' objectives, and then we can define who their ideal customer is, then we can figure out how to best help them.
Mm-hmm. I believe that would be nice to watch this video, to rewatch this video in 10-15 years to see whether those tendencies that you have just mentioned will remain, will come true.
Yeah, well, I think Google will still be here in 10 or 15 years. Yeah, Facebook, hard to say, isn't it? You know, whether everything went wrong for MySpace overnight, didn't it? It's you know, it's these platforms, they can go away and they can hit a kind of critical mass. I think it will probably still be around in some capacity, and I think they're probably hedging their bets with, you know, WhatsApp and other platforms that they're kind of, you know, linking with, and Instagram, and, you know, so I think social will be here in some you know, and so will search. Hopefully I'll be retired by then and just tending a plot of, you know, vegetables in my garden and won't have to.
That would be so beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
That's well, thank you so much, Marcus. That was, for me, that was so interesting to find out these peculiarities about you working at Bowler Hat and the story behind the business and your strategy that you work on right now, and how you address your customers' needs, and everything about, well, I say SEO, but SEO and analytics. That's really interesting. So thank you so much for finding time to share this, and I hope that you have a nice week, and you had a nice week with your kids on this vacation, right? And the other weeks will be also nice.
Yeah, it's my daughter's 17th birthday tomorrow, so
oh yes, exactly. So remember, she has to win, so
yeah, she has to win.
she has to win, so take that into consideration.
Cool.
Okay, well, yeah,
take care.
Thank you so much, and have a nice day.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.